Okay, we're up to the middle of very famous Agadah Torah, up to Tainis Chaf Aleph, Amid Aleph, very famous Maisa between Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan. And the tremendous lessons to learn from this Gemara. We're going to have another Gemara. Says the Gemara, Ilfa Rabbi Yochanan have a Garsi Baraisa. They were Talmidei Chachamim, they were learning Torah. However, Dechika Luchu Milsa, they were very poor. Tuva, very poor. Amri, they said, Nekim V'nezel, V'nevadiska, we'll go to work. V'nikayim B'nafshin, and we'll fulfill in ourselves, Efes Kilo Yilcha Evyoin, that there shouldn't be any destitute people in Klal Yisrael. Also, as they were leaving the yeshiva and they were going to work, Oisvi Tute Guda they sat underneath some a bad bridge, l'chayra. Having krochi rifta, they broke bread to eat. Asi tremalchi ashares, and Shami Rabbi Yochanan heard these two malachim talking. Damri chad l'chavre, nishade alayu hayguda. Let's throw down this bridge on top of them, and that glina will kill them. Why? Shemenichem chay olam haba v'oiskim b'chayisha. They're leaving chay olam haba. They're leaving yeshiva, the life of Torah, to go ahead and work. So Amalei idach said the other one, no, shafkinuhu, leave them alone. The Ikavu Chad is going to be one of them, the Kaimalu Shaita, who, right, is going to be what? Is going to be the Kaimalu Shaita, he's going to be the Rosh Hashiva. Rabbi Yochanan heard these two malachim talking, but Ilfa Shama. Ilfa did not hear the conversation. Only Rabbi Yochanan Ilfa Shama Mar Midi, did the master hear something? Amalei, Loi. So Oma, Midi Shama Ana, the Ilfa Loi Shama, when I heard and Ilfa did not hear, I'm supposed to be the Rosh Hashiva. So I'm Rabbi Yochanan, Ahada v'uki ben Avshoy. I'll go and I'll be fulfilled the pasuk. Ki lo yechtel evyon mikerav haaretz. So will not be what a pauper from. Will not stop being paupers from among you. So in other words, I'm gonna you Ilfa can go be oisig and pragmatia in business, but I'm going to go back and learn, despite the fact that I'm going to be an evyon. Rabbi Yochanan Hada. Rabbi Yochanan went back. Ilfa did not go back. Ad Asi Ilfa, until Ilfa came back after doing business. Milach Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan had been appointed Rosh Hashiva. So Amulai, they said, I Osiv Mar V'Garim L'Havi Molach Mar. If Ilfas would have gone ahead and learned, then we wouldn't have gone ahead and appointed the other one. So Azal plus Tola Nafshe Beskari Bisvinasa. He went. Tola means he suspended himself. But according to Rashi and other places, he leaned on the mast of a ship. And Amar, if there's anyone who brings me from the prices and Toseftis or Rabbi and Rabbi Yeshia, and I won't be able to find the source in the Mishnah. I'll fall off the ship and I'll drown. In other words, Ilfa was saying, despite the fact that I was in working, it did not go affect my learning. I still am able to go ahead and be pushed at any shiloh from any place from but Hanoic source. Asahu Saba came along, this elder Tanalei. Shekel lebanai b'Shabbos. Give a shekel for my children for a week. This person is holding by dying, and he's saying, give a shekel per week for my children. V'hein roya las Islam sela, but they were worthy of giving a double, a sela. There are two shkalim in a sela. So in other words, it wasn't enough. A shekel wasn't enough, and they needed a sela. Don't say that the dafka was makbid on a shekel. Nice to seller, you give him the seller. Why? Because he didn't say, do not give them only a shekel. He said, give a shekel. Rashi explains that when he said give a shekel, that even if they would need more, they would go to work and make up the difference. But not that he's being mocked with that dafka that. He wanted to be mizaris them to go to work. However, the first white line, Vim Omar, al titnu lahem el shekel, then he's mocked to only give a shekel, then ein loislam el shekel. Next case, Im Omar, Nesu Yarshai, Acherim Tachtayim. If my Yarshim die, others should take their place, right? In other words, there should be a Yerusha left over. There should be a Yerusha left over, what, for those people? Bein Shama Tenu, Bein Shama Al Titnu, whether they said to give, or to give a shekel, or Al Titnu, only give a shekel, Ein Noislam El shekel, you only give them a shekel. Why? Because you see that he wants that there should be left over after his descendants leave this world. There should be left over. So give the minimal amount of shekel. Amalei, so her money. So they said to him, "Who's the Tana of this Mishnah?" So he answered. Ilfa said, "It's for Mehi. Dama mitzvah kayim divrei ames." Right? That's a mitzvah to go ahead and fulfill the words of a mace. That's the end of the Gemara. And that is by going ahead and keeping the words of a mace and ensuring there's from the last case is left over for the next generation after his own Yarshim die. So mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames by only taking a shekel and not taking double the amount of selah. Now there's a concept in the Torah of divrei shchiv meira kiksuvim ukrimasurim dami, that the words of a shchiv meira, a person on his deathbed, are considered even without a kinyan kiksuvim as they're written ukrimasurim as if they're given over. Person on his deathbed, he has many things to think about. He can't think about all the nuances of business, how to give over transactions. So we say, divrei shchiv meira kiksuvim ukrimasurim dami. So what's the chiluk between that and mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames? What's the difference between divrei shchiv meira kiksuvim ukrimasurim dami and divrei shchiv and mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames? So it seems to be mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames works when there is a shlish, when there's a third party involved. You give over something to someone and say they should only, now, I'm giving it to a person A. Only give them a shekel, or give them a shekel and give them a selah. So you're giving over to a third party, whereas divrei shchiv meira kiksuvim ukrimasurim dami seems to be what in every scenario. That would be a chilek. Now, Ilfa, I was just thinking that from the Gemara, you have two proofs. You have one, you have the importance of a person staying in yeshiva, and secondly, that a balabas can steig in learning, because Ilfa is working and he still did not go ahead, and he's still steig. I know of a person, I don't want to say his name, but he was a lawyer for many, many years, and I seldom have seen many people in my life who are such huge Talmidei Chachamim. Despite the fact that he was working, he always remained true to himself, always was kadei l'Torah, and always kept up his sidara. There are many people like that. The Sroli Bornstein, as a matter of fact, is a very large Talmud Chacham, a young Talmud Chacham, was a young man. He learned for 10 years in Kailul, and in fact, he works in the nursing home industry. So you see a person is able to go ahead, despite the fact not being in yeshiva, like Ilfa, can go ahead and steig and be a profound Talmud Chacham. Conversely, Rabbi Yochanan was the Rosh Yeshiva. I have my Talmud, my Rebbe, when I went to Rav Gusman, was his name was Rabbi Lipka, Zolzain Gesund Stark, he should be well. And I said to him, he had moved to Eretz Yisrael. He uprooted his life in 1970. He went with his young children and a wife to Eretz Yisrael to follow his Rebbe. And I was speaking to him about it. He said, any person who stayed with the Rosh Yeshiva had atzlacha. And the people who didn't, they didn't seem to steig as much. He told me when he came to Yeshiva in Eastern Parkway in Netzach Yisrael, he was in a certain person's share. I don't want to say the name. He said this person was probably the biggest Talmud of the Rosh Yeshiva, bigger than Hillel Ruvel, probably the biggest Talmud of Rosh Yeshiva. Yet, when he didn't follow Rosh Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael, he left him, and it didn't work out for him in terms of his scholarship and his level of learning. So you have both sides of the fence in this Gemara. You have Rabbi Yochanan staying in yeshiva, becoming Rosh Yeshiva, and you have Ilfa. Nothing seemed, Ilfa still maintained his tremendous level of scholarship, despite the fact that he went to work. Again, there's such a Gemara. There's a Gemara in Brachas and Lamed Hey, the Machloikis between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, where Yishmael says Toiv Toirim Derech Eretz, to work in Derech Eretz, and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai say no, that a person shouldn't work. We say we have a heter to work. V'safta deganecha v'siroishcha v'tzarecha. Obviously, v'safta deganecha, you're going in and taking in your grain. You planted that grain, so there's in of working. So you see, again, so it's yesh v'yesh. Okay, the next Gemara is one of the most famous Gemaras in Shas. It's the Maisa of Nocham Ish Gamzu. Says the Gemara. Omru Ulav Nocham Ish Gamzu. They said about Nocham Ish Gamzu, he was blind. Nocham was blind. Mishteyena from both his eyes. Gidim Mishteyadav. He was an amputee, both his hands. Kitea Mishtey Raglov. Loyalenu, he didn't have his legs. And his whole body was covered with boils. And again, this we're bringing it in terms of the bad walls, the walls that falling down over here. And then it said it was what? He was lying in a house that was a rickety house. And the feet of his bed were immersed in bowls of water, because you're worried that the bugs, the ants, should not come on him. Because again, since he was incapacitated, he won't be able to move. So therefore, to go ahead and avert the insects coming up, they would have bowls of water where the insects would drown. And we just said that. Bikshu Talmidav Lifnais Mitasa. They were worried for his life, and they wanted to take him out. Then take out all the vessels that were in the house. Amlahem Banai. First take out the kalim, then take me out. I can assure you the whole time I'm in the house, ain't a bias neufel. It's not going to happen. Pinu es kalim, they took out all the kalim. Pinu es mitase, then they took out nachum, the nafel abayis, and then only then did it fall. Amalei talmid of Rabbi v'chimeachash et tzadik gomer ata. When you were at tzadik gomer, like we met Rav Adavar Avi yesterday, like that was at tzadik gomer, like a nest can happen to them, and that's why Rav Huna was able to take, according to the Mashah, was able to take Rav Adavar Avi into his house to clean out all the wine. How could you use them like that? And the answer is it's tzaddik gama. So he knew that he wasn't using up his chosim. So Nachum, after you such a tzaddik gama, lama also lakach. Why did you end up in this horrible, terrible physical situation? So Amalahem Bonai, ani gamati latzmi. I caused it myself. Shephamachas ayisi mahalach b'derech lebeis chami. I was going to my father-in-law's house. Well, Imi masai gimel chamorim. I had 3 donkeys, and on each donkey I had a different burden. One donkey had food on it. One donkey had drink on it. And the third one had all types of delicacies. But came along and Rabbi Parnaseni, give me some parnasa, give me something. I'm an ani. Amatila himtim, please until I can go ahead and unload the donkey, and then I'll give you. I didn't have a chance to go ahead and unload the donkey until the shitskadach the poor ani died. I fell on his face. My eyes that did not go ahead and have rachmanas in your eyes, Yisuma, they should be blind. My hands that didn't have rachmanas in your hands, Yiskadmu, they should be cut off. That didn't run quick enough to go ahead and give you your food, Yiskato, they should be cut off. However, all this did not appease me. My whole body should be full of skin. Then and only then did Nachum feel he was appeased for what he did to this poor ani. Woe that I should see you like this. Amalahem said Nachum, woe to me if I did not end up like this. In other words, he wanted all this Yisurim in this world. He felt what he did to that ani. He had to go through this Yisurim to ensure that his next world would be Kav V'Naki. But my Karli Nachum Yishkamzu, why they call him Nachum Yishkamzu? Why was that his title? The Chol Milsa Dahavi Solkale, everything that happened to him, Amagamzu L'Toiva. And now we're going to say a Maisa, very famous Maisa, with happened to Nachum, that will illustrate this. Zim Nechada Boy L'Shadure Yisrael Doiron LeBekesad. The Jews had to send a gift to the Caesar. Omru Man Yazel, who should go bring it? So Yazel Nachum, let Ishkamzu, let Nachum Ishkamzu bring it. The Malumah Ben Isimhu. You know what? We're going to send a very, very large, generous gift, quote unquote, bribe, and we want to make sure nothing happens to it. So we'll give it to Nachum, who is Malumid Wad in Nisim, and then we don't have to worry about anything happening to it. We'll see. Shodu b'yadei mole sifta, they filled up a chest, the avonim toivais, precious gems and margolias and pearls, azul bas. But who dira, he went in bas and he lodged in the certain inn. But Laila, at night, kamu hanach liyori, came along the innkeeper and certain people there. The shaklinu l'sifta, they went ahead, they took the chest, umalnuhu afra, and they went ahead and filled it up with dirt. Kimata hasam, when nothing got to the Caesar, Sharinu l'sifta and Chazinu d'mal Yafa. They went ahead, they opened up the chest, and what did they found? A bunch of dirt. Boy malchol mikalinu l'kula. Wanted to kill him. Omar, kamachaychi b'yidai. He said in front that the Jews are making fun of me. So Omar gamzu l'toiva. What did Nachum say? What was his reaction to this? Gamzu l'tova. That was his. Can you imagine? Guys, can you imagine? Put yourself in this situation. Gamzu l'toiva. Us Eliyahu. Eliyahu came dressed as a Roman officer. Maybe this afer, maybe this dirt is the dirt of Avram Avinu, Avuhun, his father. That right? If we threw it, the dirt, it became a sword. Gili, when he threw straw, giri became what? It became arrows. So there was in Lech Lecha and Perik Yudalid, we have a battle of Ram Avinu going to war against the 4 kings. And Medrash tells us some unbelievable. He goes with I don't know how many men. According to Rashi, it could have been only Eliezer Levado. It could have been more than that. We spoke about this many times. But L'chaira, he went with. There's no way in the world he could have gone ahead and in Derech Teva beaten up the four kings. So the Medrash tells us he had this dirt. He'd throw the dirt, and they would turn into arrows, would turn into all kinds of weapons and kill them. So Eliyahu says to the Caesar, maybe this dirt is of that dirt. The Romans, there was a Medina that they could not conquer. They went ahead and they checked out this dirt, and sure enough, guess what? They ended up being nuclear missiles. The Kafshua, and they went ahead and they were victorious over this Medina that they hadn't been able to be victorious previously. They brought Nochem into the Geniza, into the treasury house. Malul Sifte, they filled up his chest. Avonim Toivos Magolias Vichurua Yakurab, and they sent Nochem away with tremendous covet. Kiyasa Besa Bahu Diyara, he went and he stayed in the same inn that he lodged in initially. Amulei my Isis Bahadach, the Abdul Chayaka Kulihai. Why did you do that? They give you such honor. So Amalahu, my Deshakhlamihacha Amti Lahasam. Whatever I took from here was over there. Sasul Dirayu, they heard this, they knocked down their house to go ahead and maximize the amount of schmutz they could bring. From Tinu Lebe Malka, they brought the dirt to the Melech. They told the Malka, this is the dirt that Nachem brought, is ours. But they checked it out, and guess what? And they found that it was dirt. And they ended up killing those people. Okay, that's the mice of Nachem Ishkamsu. So there's a beautiful contrast over here. The Gemara tells us Chagiga that Nachem had a Rebbe, Nachem had a Talmud. Maybe you heard of him. His name is Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was his Talmud. Rabbi Akiva also, you might remember the Gemara. If you don't remember the Gemara, it's a kid's book. That Rabbi Akiva once came to a town. He had a donkey, right? He had a rooster, and he had a candle. Well, those three things. He went to the town, and he asked for people a place to lodge, and no one gave him a place to lodge. So he went he said, Kol man da'av rachmanu l'tavav. Whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is good. What did he do? He went to the forest, and he was learning. What happened? Came along a lion and ate up his donkey. What did he say? Kol man da'av rachmanu l'tavav. Came along a cat and ate up his rooster. Kol man da'av rachmanu l'tavav. And he was learning by the light. Came along a wind, put out the light. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Kol man da'av l'tavav. What happened? That night came along a bunch of robbers. And they went to the town, and they brought the whole town into captivity. They captured the whole town, and they brought the people into slavery. I don't know what they did with them. Said Rabbi Akiva, had I been in that town, had I had a light, they would have noticed me. Had I had a rooster, they would have heard the crowing. Had I had a donkey, they would have heard the braying of the donkey. Kol man da'av l'tavav. So is there a difference between kol man da'av rachman l'tavav versus gamzu l'toiva? Is there a difference? One is an Aramaic word, one's Hebrew, but is there a difference? So there's a parish on the Ein Yaakov called Danaf Yosef, and he says the following chilek, and it's very nice. Kol man da'av rachmana, whatever the Torah does, l'tavav it. I don't see it here now, but it's going to be good. When the donkey was killed, I didn't see the good. When the rooster was killed, I didn't see the good. When the light went out, I didn't see the good. I only saw it afterwards. Kol man da'av rachmana l'tavav it. I'll see it. Gamzu l'toiva means this is good. Right now, it's good. That's a higher madrega, because I don't have to wait to see the good. When they opened up that chest and they saw schmutz, already too, he didn't have to wait to see it thrown to the enemies and becoming arrows and swords and missiles. They didn't have to see that. Already Tanachim was good. That's the madrega. That's unbelievable, and that's why he had the moniker Nachem Ish Gamsu, right? They didn't call Rabbi Akiva, called the Ovid Rahman al-Tavav. He had the title Rabbi Akiva. But Nachem, that was mamish his mahus, his essence, they gave him the title Nachem Ish Gamsu. Says the Gemara, Ezeu Dever, we said Dever, so what do we say in the Mishnah? 500 healthy people, and on 3 consecutive days, each one goes out. 3 consecutive days, they die. It says, Ezeu Dever, Ir amoitzi chamesh meis ragli. Aton Rabbanan, Ir amotzi chamesh meis ve'elef ragli. A city that has 3 times the amount. It has 1,500, right? Going Kfar Akoi, for example, this town of Kfar Akoi, V'yatzu imenu tisha mesim l'shloisha yamim, 3 each day. Again, the same ratio, a 3-to-1 ratio. If all 9 die in one day, or b'dalad yamim, or 4 days, not 3 days, ain't said deve. V'ira moitzia chamesh me'as ragli going kfar amiko. V'yatzu imenu shloisha mesim b'gimel yamim. The city that has 500 people like kfar amiku. And 3 days in a 3 row, this is like our Mishnah. I said Deva Amid Beis. That's considered Deva. If it happens on 1 day or 4 days, ain't a Deva. That's not Deva. The Roy Kart, the city of Roy Kart, is Ira Motzia Chamesh Me'as Ragli. There was a city that had 500. That we're going to say Pashtos that you would ought to be considered Deva. It would have to be 3 people, but not on the same day. 1, 2, 3 on 3 consecutive days, like our Mishnah. 3 on 1 day. Gozer Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda Tanisa. Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, he was Gozer Tainus, despite the fact that our Mishnah doesn't say it was Dever, he was Gozer Tainus. Why? Because it was 3 on 1 day, not 1, 2, 3 on 3 consecutive days. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, names are important. So Rav Nachman by Yitzchak said to Rav Nachman by Chisda, Ki Reb Meir, like Reb Meir, the Amar, Richuk Nigiroisav Chayiv, Kir Nigiroisav Kol Shekain. We're going to see Bez Hashem Masechta Baba Kama. If a shah goes on 3 separate days, it becomes a muid. Says Reb Meir, certainly if it goes on 1 day. If Richuk Nigiroisav on 3 consecutive days, it's a muid. Then if it does it 3 times in 1 day, it's a mu'id. So to over here, if it dies on 3 consecutive days, it's dever. So if all on 1 day, it's also dever, and therefore it's going to times. Now, only Rav Nachman bar Chisda, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Leike Mar Leisid Legabon, please come sit with us. In other words, Mizrach Fant, wherever they would sit with us. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak told Rav Nachman bar Chisda. Now, guys, look at the name. Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda versus Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. It doesn't say Rav Yitzchak. It just says Yitzchak. By Rav Chisda, it says Rav Chisda. So now, Amalei, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak told Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, it's not where the person where he sits that makes him mechubin. Mizrach Vant is not Mizrach Vant because it's Mizrach Vant. It's Mizrach Vant because the people who sit there make a Mizrach Vant. Again, if you put a bunch of yotzes up on Mizrach Vant, no one would want to sit there. Right? No one would want to sit there. You went to the Mirror Base Medrash, and you know the chash's place to sit was the back, because you know who sat in the back? Shmuel Bimam Zechet Tzaddik Kadosh L'Bracha. That's what sat in the back. That's what made the back. Okay. I still remember a shiva in the middle by Shachris. There was a certain person named Rav David Cohn sitting in the back. Rav Shiva looked up, saw him, went to the back, took him, and stepped into the front. Bobby Obach told me he went to the Mir Yeshiva in Yerushalayim to daven mincha with Rav Gusman, and he went to find the sitter for Rav Gusman, and lo and behold, he ended up seeing Rav Gusman in the front. What happened? Chaim Shmulevitz Zatzal went, saw him sitting in the back, he went, and he slept into the front. But it wasn't the front, it was those people who sat there that made the front chashiv, not that the front was chashiv. So therefore, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said to Rav Nachman bar Chisda, I don't have to sit in the front. It's not the place that makes the chashiv, it's just the individual. Where do you find that? For example, by Har Sinai. Shekol zman sheshchina shruya love. The whole time the Shechina was shayra on Har Sinai. Amr Torah, gamat tzayin v'abakal, yiroel malahu. All the tzayin bakal should not graze on the mountain. In the stalik Shechina, mimenu, once the Shechina left it, Amr Torah, b'meshach hayovel, hema yalu bahar. So in other words, if Har Sinai had kedusha, then the animals should never be able to graze on it. They only grazed on it when Hashem was there. So you see, the person who makes the place. It's not the place, it's the person who makes the place. So b'midbar, we find the oil moed in the midbar. Shekol zman shu nate, when the oil moed was spread out, when it was open, the Mishkan was open for business. The Torah says, "V'yishalchum in amachne kol tzarua." You should send out an amachne, all tzarua, and zovim and balkeri. Once the proiches was wrapped up because they were going to travel, they were able to go in there. So you see that what? It's not, it's when the Shekhinah is there, when it's, then yes. So said Rabbi, said Rav Nachman of Chisda to Rav Nachman Yitzchak, so I'll come to you. Since the Chashivas is you, I'll come to you. So Amalei, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said to Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, Mutav Yavai Mana ben Paras. Let the mana, let's say $100, the son of a $50 bill, come to Eitzel Mana ben Mana, the 100, the son of a mana. In other words, Rav Nachman was the son of Yitzchak. Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, so you are the mana bar Rav Chisda. So therefore, you're Machashav and I. Says the Gemara. Val Yavai Mana ben Mana, Eitzel Mana ben Pras. The Surah have okay, that's the end of that story. The Surah Haves de Brasa, the Shabavisa de Rav, in Surah, which was the town of Rav. Rav was in Surah and Shmuel was in Pumpadisa. There was a dever, and however, I read it wrong. Surah Havi da Brasa, stop. The Shabavisa de Rav, loy Havi da Brasa, but in Rav's neighborhood there wasn't any. So Savru Minei Mishum Zchusa de Rav. The Nafish, they said Rav had so many schusim, it was able to protect his shchuna. All these people saw in a dream, they saw that Rav, the Nafish Schuse Tuva, right? Rav, who had tremendous schusim to save, this is nothing. For his neighbor to be saved is nothing. So it wasn't Rav that saved the neighborhood. Rav's schus could do much more than that. There was a person in the neighborhood who used to lend out shovels and other instruments for kfura. So in the schus of him, there was no dever in that neighborhood. Again, I never heard this place, but now I'm the second time in one daf. The Roikrat have a delikasa. There was a fire. Ubishuvavisa the Rav Huna in the neighborhood of Rav Huna. Lo have a delikasa. There was no fire. Savamina beschusa the Rav Huna the nafish that he saved it. And it's chaze lehu bechelme saw in a dream. The high zutrule l'Rafuna. The save from a deleka, that's nothing. That's a kleinikite for Rafuna. And let me show you, he is so there was a woman in the neighborhood. She would go ahead and heat up her oven. And she would lend it out to a shavisa. That's because of lending and being kind to other people. That saved the deleka. Maybe me the keneged me the guys, right? Maybe me the keneged me the. She heated up an oven for others, so therefore she was safe from the fire. I just thought of that. Could be just, I don't know. Amri Leil Rav Yehuda, Asi Kamsa, Gaza Tanisa. They told Rav Yehuda that Kamsoy is a type of grasshopper, of locust, and his guys are tinus. Amalei, Lokam Nefastan. 1 second. We didn't take a loss yet. You saw it, but it didn't begin eating yet. So why were you guys a tinus? So Amalei said to him facetiously, said Rav Yehuda to them, Zavda Aisebe Dayu, did they bring their food with them? In other words, they may haven't started yet, but I guarantee you they will be eating, right? So there's nothing to talk about. So let's be guys to the tinus, let's be a little proactive. Amalei Rav Yehuda, Ika Musna b'chaziri, there's a death among the pigs. You know, it's in Bavel, because you couldn't raise pigs in Eretz Yisrael. Rav Huna was in Bavel. So there seemed to be a pandemic among the pigs. Gaza Tanisa, his guys are a tinus. Name Ksav Rav Yehuda Makim Mishulaches Mimin Echad Mishulaches Mikol Minim. In other words, why in the world is the guys are a tinus? Because the disease that was in the pig is going to spread to all minim. Says the Gemara, no shiny chaziri the damyan me aihu lebnei anishi. No, it doesn't hold that to spread to all, but people have to worry since the digestive tract of the pig is similar to the digestive tract of a human being. Therefore, if it's disease among the pigs, chas v'shalom, we have to worry among human beings, and therefore, because guys are tinus. Amalei l'shmuel ika musla bechuzoi. There's a pestilence. There's musla in the town of Chuzoi. Because the tanisi was guys are tinus. Amalei v'merachak. It's far away. Amaleka me'abra hacha the pasuk. There's no river over here to stop it from coming. So it's just a matter of time, right? Amru Leila of Nachman, Ikum Muslim be'Arid Yisrael. There's a dever in Arid Yisrael. Goes to Tanisa in Rav Nachman was goes to Tanis and Bavel. Amar in Gevira Loika Shifcha Loikal Shekain. If the mistress Eretz Yisrael is stricken with certainly the Shifcha Bavel, the ancillary, the secondary level, who has to worry. Time of the Gevira of Shifcha. The reason why you have to worry, of course, one is the Gevira and one is the Shifcha. A Shifcha v'Shifcha. Let's say it's both in Bavel, so they're both not the Gevir, they're both Shifcha. Loi, mashma, you would not have to be guys or tinus, because you're not going from the higher to the lower, you're going to equal the Shifcha to Shifcha. It says, I normally Shmuel, Ika Musna Bechuzoi goes to Tanisa, Shani Hasam, Kivin the Ika Shayasa, the Lavoy, since there are caravans that go back and forth, then you have to worry. In other words, if there's no reason to worry about something going ahead and being transported, then not. If you have to worry, you have to worry. In Yanei Diyayma, right? In Yanei Diyayma. I remember last year, Hanukkah time, fellas, I had COVID last year. Hanukkah time, this year, this time I had COVID. How much this time? Abba Umna. Abba was he was a bloodletter. His name was Abba Umna. He was a bloodletter. Havi Osile Shalmei Mesif the Rakia Kol Yom. Every day a bas kol would come out for Shemayim and say, Abba Umna, how you doing? They would go and greet him for Shemayim. Well, Abaya Kol Mala Yuma de Shabbata. Abaya got this greeting every Shabbos. L'Rava Kol Mala Yuma de Kippur. Rava got it once a year, Erev Yom Kippur. Havi Kachol Shtaited the Abaya Mishum the Abba Umna. He had Chalishas Adas that Abba Umna got it every week, and he only got it once a week. Abba Umna got it every day, and he only got it once a week. So you can't do like him. What did he do? The Abba Umna, the Chihavi Ovid Milsa, when he would go ahead and he would bloodlet. He had separate waiting rooms. He wouldn't let the be taruvas men and women. The Islay Levusha, and he had a kind of garment. The Ispe Karna, that it had the keren. What they bloodlet they would do is they would cut it with a scalpel, and they would pull it out, draw it out with this keren, with this one. So he had some type of garment that had the keren built into it. Davi Bezia Keiko Silta, it had a slit, and Kiko Silta, when he would cut with the scalpel, Ki Havi Osile Itsisa, Havi Malbish, if a woman would come, he would put on this garment, Ki Hechi Listalka, but he wouldn't see her. And then he would go ahead and take the area, put the slit, cut it, and then take the horn that was built in and do the whole thing. So basically, he was able to go ahead and bloodlet with total tznius without ever seeing the woman. So he was really makbid in Inyani Kedusha. He was makbid in Inyani Kedusha, keeping men and women separate. And when he went ahead and did the maisa of bloodletting, he did it in such a manner that the woman was totally what? B'tznius. The Islay Duchte did Sina, he had a private place, the Shadi Be Pshiti, the Shakel, the Islay that you it's near the Shadi Be Pshiti, where people would throw out their money, the Islay Shadi Be, and the less Be Le Michsef. In other words, he didn't collect money directly. People left and they put money in. If you had, you didn't, you didn't. And when a young Talmud Chacham would come to bloodlet, so Igri Minele Shakel, he never took any money from him. Who busted the koi, and when he would get up to leave, Yavle Pshite, the Haba Umna would pay the Surim Rabbanan and give him money. He would give him money. Go make yourself healthy. In other words, here's money, go eat something. Again, after your blood that you should eat in order to restore the blood. Abaya heard about this. Abba Umna, he sent Rabbanim to check him out. So Asvinu Vachlinu Ashkinu, Abba Umna went ahead and he gave them what to eat and what to drink. Umachlu Bistraki, and he gave them what to Belaila. He folded up some type of cloth that they could sleep on. Amid Aleph, Litzafra in the morning, Korchinu, in the morning, Korchinu V'Shaklinu. These guys, these Sumer Rabbana, what do? They took the bedding that they had, and they went, they went out to sell it in the shuk. And guess lo and behold, they met Abba Umna there. Amalei l'shami mar hechi shava. They asked them, figure out how much this is worth. Amalei hachi bachi. It's worth such and such. Amalei b'dilma shava tfei. Maybe it's worth more. Amalei b'hachi shaklina. This is the price I paid for it. Amalei didachninu. Guess what? It's yours. V'shaklina minach. We took it from you. So Amalei b'matus minach. I beg you. B'may chadatina. Why were you chayshit from us when you saw us selling your stuff? Like, why were you chayshit? Samalei Amina Pidyon Shvuyin Iklulei Rabbanon. Pidyon Shvuyin came to the Rabbanon. They would have to go ahead and they had to raise money. And they were embarrassed to ask me for it. So listen how he was down the Kavskos. What unbelievable! They was able to down the Kavskos. They must have needed the money for something. So Amalei, they told him Hashtanish Galinu Mart. So take it back. Amalahu, he told them, Who shaita from the time that I saw you have it and I thought you needed for Pidyon Shvuyim. Achastinu daite and litzdaka have. So it should be litstaka. So therefore, I'm not taking it back. Mamish it's tzaddik yisleid. Now that's why he was zeicha every day, and that's why Abaye was only zeicha once a week. Now Rava, he felt bad vis-a-vis Abaye. Cholish taited the Rava mishum d'Abaye. Abaye saw at least every Shabbos, and Rava only saw it once a year. Amalei mistayich to come meganis akula kracha. It's enough that you go ahead and protect the whole city. It's enough that you protect the whole city. I wish everyone a good Shabbos, good Shabbos Chanukah.